Yes. Hi, everybody. Kathryn, thank you so much for joining me today. You are such an inspirational role model for a lot of younger dancers, and I just want to pick your brain a little bit to hopefully help whoever I can help out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm always happy to share, and I'm kind of an open book, as we know. So
Yes. So, Kathryn, we all have a pretty good idea of who you are and your background, but I'd love to hear what you've been up to now lately. We're about 17 months in already with this pandemic, and I just want to hear, why don't you kind of just pick us up to pace?
Well, basically, I mean, the whole big thing of me leaving Miami due to body shaming issues and all of that, I think the world knows that story now. But basically, I have been sort of getting prepared to do and build my business, essentially.
Yeah.
I've started this platform called Kathryn Morgan and Friends because I wanted to be an inclusive, happy, joyful environment with ballet. And so I've been doing online master classes, which I'm still doing online private lessons, which I'm still doing. But we're preparing to start, hopefully, once the pandemic calms down a little bit, to start touring, to start doing, workshops elsewhere, sort of traveling band, essentially, performance classes, all that. And it's just, for me, it's bringing the main sort of tagline is bringing the joy back to ballet, because I feel like a lot of people have lost that. You get into ballet because you love it and it makes you happy. And most of the time, over the period of years, or by the time you get out of ballet, you hate it because of body shaming, because of perfection, because of, all the bad stuff. And so I'm trying to, with my organization, with my company, try and bring it back to the joyfulness of it and get rid of all the awful stuff. Personal life, just got engaged.
Yes, congratulations. I know. Gorgeous.
Thank you. Yeah, he did exceedingly well.
I think I told you a marquee diamond is, to me, you don't get more classic than that. And it just goes so well with you because you're just such a class A type of person. So.
Thank you. The marquee is his grandmother's diamond. So
that's what's so beautiful about marquee. I told you I have a marquee diamond too, and it was also an heirloom. You don't see them nowadays. No. You pretty much, unless it's an heirloom, you're not seeing a marquee diamond around.
Right. I mean, I figured this was coming eventually. I didn't know quite what, but we hadn't talked about rings, and so I'm like, does he even know what I want? He couldn't have done better. So,
Gorgeous.
Chris and I are trying to figure out life as well, and our future, and all that stuff. But basically through the pandemic, it's just sort of been start building this, start doing it virtually because we can now, and hopefully, which we have plans to turn it to a lot of in-person things and a tour. And I'm very happy doing things on my own terms now. A lot of people are like, are you gonna go back to a company? I mean, I'm happy to guest if anybody will have me guest. I have no desire to full-time get back into a single ballet company. That is sort of not I don't like the environments. There's so many unhappy dancers, not just in the one I was at. Talking to so many of my professional friends, ballet companies, what the heck is wrong? There's so many people that are so unhappy. So if I can create an environment where I can still perform and still dance, but on my own terms, I have no desire to go back into a company. So.
Absolutely. And a big word that you said I love is accessibility.
Yes.
Not only are you bringing back the joy to ballet, because that's something that I often talk about too. It's where was that passion I experienced on a personal level as well, that feeling of burnout. For me, it was needing to completely leave the dance world, start something completely different, like nutrition, until I was able to get back in, but with wearing a different hat. And I think what's so interesting is the problem here is a lot of dancers only see success in dance as being in this idealized company performing. And I think a lot of dancers need to realize that there's a lot of hats that you can wear and still be in the dance world.
Yes. For me, especially growing up as a young dancer, my measure of success, which I said before on YouTube, was principal dancer in a big company. To me, that was the only measure of success. Not a soloist, not a core, but a principal in a big company. Otherwise, you didn't make it, which is stupid. Do you know what I mean? There's so many ways to be successful in dance business, in the ballet world, in the dance business. And nowadays, thankfully, you don't have to be in the company to do that. So for me, this whole process redefined my level of success. And everybody has their own path. Everybody has their own journey. You know, I think a lot of people have said, well, you know, you did Juliet at 17 and I'm 18 and I haven't done a principal. I'm like, yeah, but I fell off the face of the earth at 23. So you don't want my path. So it's just one of those things that I think everybody, you have to do you. And there's so many different ways to be successful, and it has nothing to do with the title.
Yeah. And you bring up such a good point. I mean, having that overarching, like, one tunnel vision approach as a young dancer towards getting to that principal level at a company is, if you have any bit of type A perfectionism in you, and, like, let's be serious, who doesn't?
Oh, yeah.
If you're far in the dance world, you are very much going to land in deep waters of burnout, right?
Yeah. And for me, another passion of late is sort of mentoring young dancers and building them up. And just the talk they say to themselves, I'm not good enough, da, 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 I'm terrible, da, 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 da. I'm like, where are you getting this? Like, who are the teachers putting this into your head? How are these teachers teaching these kids nowadays that they think they're all terrible? I'm like, you're 16, like, you don't even know, like, where are you getting this? Yeah. So it's also a thing, both Chris and I are like, that's sort of our passion now, is to sort of bring up the next generation. I've also found a new passion in teaching adults. I love teaching adults. So yeah, it's if you have that mental thing going on, you're going to be miserable no matter how much you love ballet. So
absolutely right. It's that perfectionism that just comes in the way of, it came in my way of, you know, being or continuing my performance career until I had to actively take myself out. And for you, what I want to hear about is the months leading up to your decision of leaving Miami City Ballet. Talk to us about that. I think a lot of dancers are experiencing this more than ever, just coming out of the pandemic. A lot of studios may or may not be going back in person in September, and a lot of dancers are feeling really nervous. A lot of dancers also picked up side careers, side passions while being in the pandemic. You know, that was like one of the pros we saw of this. So can you just walk us through maybe those months leading up to your decision, how you felt with your decision, and then the months, perhaps the wake of making that decision?
Well, just real quickly, with the pandemic and dancers realizing, they're starting to realize that they're more than just dancers. I think that was my first big thing too, is that, again, we measure our level of success by how well we're doing in a company and how well we've gotten a job and what roles we're doing. I had a pretty good idea by Nutcracker that I was either going to only do one more year or jump ship and look for another company. And things then just got worse, because it just started with being told, which I don't think I said on YouTube, one of the times I was told my body wasn't good enough was at half-hour call before Slaughter. And in Slaughter on 10th Avenue, you are half naked on stage. You are nothing, and you have to go out and be a stripper. And at half-hour call, I was called into the office in the theater and told that I was on warning for Firebird. Have a good show. So I was just sort of like, what? Turned out that was one of the best shows I did, because I was like, I'm going to show you. So it turned out to be a really good show, but still not a good time. And then just progressive. I started to see that no matter what I did, it wasn't going to be good enough. The body shaming, the body comments. So by January or February, I knew I was done. Once I was taken out of Firebird, and then the whole 9 Sinatra songs thing happened, I was like, I'm out. I called Chris and I was like, I can't do this anymore. We had talked about our future together anyway, and when do we move in, and when do we stop this? We were long distance for like 9 months, and we were like both over it. And so he was like, well, if you're gonna leave anyway, he had just retired at that point, so he's like, just come here. So it was sort of a thing of, I felt like a total failure, because here I was, I made this big comeback, did this thing, and then not even halfway through the first season, I was like, I don't think I can do this. And for a really long time, I put the blame on myself. You're not thin enough. You're not good enough. By the end, when every role had been taken from me, I stopped going to company class because I knew I was done. So I was like, why would I put myself through that? And instead, I was going to the gym and got a personal trainer on my own dime to try and get the weight off, and to like sit in the steam room afterwards for like an hour trying to sweat out the extra weight. You know what I mean? I was trying to do everything I can. And my Hashimoto's just went through the roof, lost all the hair again. So it was this horrible like hamster wheel for a really long time. And it's like, I made the decision to leave and the pandemic hit. And so I thought, well, that's great. I can slide under the radar. And I can use the pandemic as my excuse. Well, through the pandemic, because we ended in April and I didn't speak out until October. It was like 6 months later. And I thought, well, I'll just slide under the radar and pandemic and priorities and da-da-da. And then I realized, but if you do that, you're not helping anybody. I had started to see, not just with me, but I had friends and I had other people starting to see this body shaming thing happen, and we're all led to believe that it's different, and it's so not different. And I thought, well, you've kind of now developed this platform, this brand that financially, if no company will ever hire you again, you're going to be okay. Because so many dancers can't speak out because that is their livelihood. And if they can't get a job, they have to start from square one. So I thought, well, if I'm not going to speak out, who is? And I recorded the video, and probably for 2 weeks, I went back and forth of whether or not to post. I had filmed it like 2 weeks prior to actually posting it. And then when I posted it, I was at I use this analogy, the Tangled moment. I'm the best daughter ever. What am I doing? And blah, back and forth. And then all of the other people started to speak out. And that's when I went, okay, you did the right thing. Because it's not just you. You're not crazy. Because for a while I thought, maybe you're just lazy. Maybe you're not. Maybe you're just a whiner. Maybe you're playing the victim. I knew I wasn't sitting around trying and just feeling sorry for myself. I was trying. I stopped going to class because I had nothing to rehearse, and why put yourself through the mental torture? But I was trying. So it was sort of a case of, okay, no, what you did try. And then so many other people started speaking out, not just from Miami, but so many people. And it was like, okay, you're not crazy. And then it was like, I did the right thing.
Yeah. Just to go back a little bit, what's crazy here of the situation, what's wild is that this idea of, you were trying to be what this company wanted you to be, that led you right back on that hamster wheel of unsustainable habits. These habits that are so glorified in our culture, going to the gym, sweating it out, perhaps restricting your food intake. These habits that are so glorified in our culture, right? You went back to them. They obviously didn't serve you because they don't serve anyone, because they're not sustainable no matter who you are. And I see, that's what I find wild, right? And what's interesting here is that we've experienced this in the past, Kathryn, right? And it's so easy for dancers to slip right back into it, to slip right back onto that hamster wheel. A lot of dancers will message me like, I'm really worried. I'm trying to lessen my restrictive eating. I'm trying to, get to this idea of food freedom that you talk about, Rachel, but I am triggered. This is a journey, right? The point is that this is a journey. You're never off of it, right? Because of the culture we live in. It's just amplified in dance culture, but it's all around us.
And I think everybody, there's that line of yeah, you've got to be fit to be a dancer, but the problem is the line is so extreme that it's just been pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed, and that you are, as a 30, now I'll be 33 in a week, 33-year-old woman expected to look like I did at 17, when biologically you're not supposed to. Like,
yes.
So it's one of those things that but in our minds as dancers, we have been trained to suck it up and do it. What's your problem? Your foot's broken, it's fine, go on. Because if you don't do it, someone else will. We'll put on your understudy. And so it's mentality.
Yeah, that mindset of, you don't do it, you're not good enough, you're not strong enough, right?
Yep. It's you. It's your problem. Your foot's falling off. You're not strong enough. Go on. Right. So I remember, like, even with pain, like, I had blisters the size of, and so what do? You cut holes in your shoes. Like, okay, I got to get through the show. And, just like, that's the dancer mentality, is we just do it. Just do it. Stop complaining and do it. And at a certain point, it leads over into your food and your exercise and your body image. And I have to look like a 17-year-old, even though I'm 33,
And it just doesn't help in the long run, right? It doesn't promote, as you said in the very beginning of this conversation, drives us further away from that joy that we once had. We all started in the studio, whether you were like 3 in that sequence costume or 6, there was some bit of passion there at that point. And over the years, like you said, it was lost, or it was taken away, right? It was taken away by the culture. And as an individual dancer, dancers need to I hate to say dancers need to work on this, because at the end of the day, like you had said this, you were in a position where you could speak out. I would never want any dancer who feels scared, or that they cannot, or perhaps maybe it's not safe for them to speak out, to feel guilty about not speaking out. You know what I mean? So I want to thank you for using your platform to have taken that plunge for the dance industry.
Yeah, because it won't change unless enough of us do it. Because it's not just me. You know, I think everybody's like, oh, you're changing the ballet. I can't change the ballet world by myself. I can't. So it's more of, the more of us that speak out who are in a position to, the more we start that change. You know, and it's going to be generational. I think once my generation takes over, it will start to change. I don't think changing any current people of the old guard is going to happen. I think that's just is what it is, and we have to learn how to deal with it. But I think it's when the new blood takes over that things will start to change. And it does. You know, it's funny, going back to the joy thing, it popped into my head. I remember being somewhere, and you know, when you're watching like 3, 4, 5-year-olds in ballet class, and they have their little tummies, and somebody, I can't even remember who it was or where it was, but commented on the 5-year-old's little tummy. Well, she's got to get rid of that tummy. And I'm like, she's 5. She's a little kid. Yeah. Like, the little kids have the tummies and they stand there. You know, that's just part of being a kid. And even in ballet with a 5-year-old, it's like that 5-year-old needs to get rid of the I'm just like, we have gone so far astray. Like, it's bad.
Could you pinpoint, Kathryn, when diet culture integrated itself in your life? This is like a very loaded question, but I am curious, at what age were you when diet culture integrated your life? You were 12.
I remember it vividly, because I was at CPYB for the summer, and I remember up until that point, I was, you know, I've always had very good ballet proportions in that I have really long arms, really long legs. And at 12 is when I started to get, and I quote, very, very, you know, rounder. You know, I was not that 11-year-old, 12-year-old who's just all string bean. I started to have a little more meat on my bones. And, you know, my mother, all in good, out of love, was looking at me going, well, if you want to be a ballerina, you got to get rid of your roundness. And so I remember going on a diet that summer. I remember us walking around the park in between classes trying to do 12. And it was something that just continued, because even when I was not ill, and when I was not, you know, I wasn't yet diagnosed with Hashimoto's, I was never the twig in the room. I was always that one kid that had a little more flesh. You know, I was not the skin and bones string bean. When I was 15, it got to a point where I had starved myself so much that I did turn into a twig. But if you go back and watch, I think it's the Snow Queen video I posted on YouTube. That was the only time in my life that I was that thin. And then that very next year, I went to SAB and realized that in order to get through the schedule, I was going to have to like start eating, like kind of thing. And then I remember gaining like pounds and still looking thin, but the only time I was ever twig, skin and bones is when I starved myself for a year at 15. And then I just realized that, okay, I have to start taking care of myself, you know, to get through SAB. Hired at 17, doing a full city ballet schedule at 17. You've got to eat. It's 10 to 10 daily. So it was just sort of the thing that I was always small, but never twiggy. Or really, really string bean kind of natural look that everybody wants. You know, some people are just naturally like that. And for me, it was always, I always had to be very careful. And then I got diagnosed and I started to get ill, and that just all flew out the window. But for me, it was 12.
And I want dancers listening to think about that. When was it that diet culture, you think, interjected itself in our lives, whether it's a teacher, whether it's a comment, whether it comes just from within, from looking in the mirror, you know, thoughts pop up. And it's so sad, though, to know that this is what younger dancers are dealing with. And one thing that you said that I think also really hits home is this idea that you, with your mother, she only wanted the best for you, right? Sometimes dancers will receive comments from teachers, and it's not that these teachers necessarily are being the villains. Right. in their defense, they might not understand the end results of restrictive eating quite yet, or of dieting and unsustainable behaviors. And they pass a comment not knowing that it could trigger. Now, with that being said, dance teachers should not be commenting on food intake, on body, and thus forth, because we never know how a dancer got to where they are. We have to build our own guard, you know what I mean? And learn how to navigate triggering language in of itself, because we never necessarily know when it can come about along the path of being in our career.
Right. And that's the thing. My mom has since obviously like said, wow, I had no idea. But she's like, I was just trying to help you because I wanted you to succeed. And as the ballet culture is, you had to be that size. So I was trying to help you. You know, it didn't come from a you're da-da-da. But it was the only thing my mother and I ever fought about my entire life, is her just from a place of love trying to tell me, you got to get smaller. And I remember some ballets, she'd be like, yeah, it'd be better if you know, they'd be happier with you if you lost, City Ballet, they'd be happier with you if you lost pounds, you know that. And it wasn't a mean thing. It wasn't a her, you know, because my mother is so not a stage mom. She's like, we can stop this anytime. Go be a heart surgeon or something. But it was one of those things that she was just trying to protect me.
I think a lot of dancers can probably relate to that. And I think it just drives home this idea more that dancers need to educate themselves about what it means to actually have a quote unquote healthy lifestyle, but also being careful, because diet culture is insidious and it can pop up in the craziest of places. And I'm sure you experienced that when you got diagnosed with Hashimoto's, right? Because once those inflammatory struggles come in, it like opens Pandora's box of diet culture.
And I experienced it the other way too, because going to quote unquote normal doctors who don't deal with Olympians, athletes, dancers, I was, again, I think that the biggest I got was still very normal, small for an average American or an average person. They were like, what do you mean you're fat? They didn't understand, you know, and that's, at the time I was like, well, they just don't understand. Now I'm like, yeah, it was ridiculous. Even the weight I am now, to be perfectly honest, a ballet company, I would probably have to lose. And it's just simply not possible for me. It's just not.
Yeah, and it's not possible for most dancers. Weight loss diets do not work long term. They set us up for failure. They are designed to set us up for failure. As humans, we just will fight restriction. We'll fight, if someone tells us A, we'll want B.
Totally.
You know what I mean? It's biology. Now, this is what's so wonderful about your platform, though, right? Because you are bringing accessible ballet education to all, right? Regardless of body type, body size, body shape, skin color, etc. Talk to us more about that. You spoke a little bit about your goals with the company, but I think this is just incredible.
Well, it's funny because what this has done is freed me up personally, because there are still days when I put on a leotard to go teach or do a YouTube video and I'm like, ugh. And then I remember, but hold on, this is what you stand for. Like, this is who you are. This is you opening up ballet. So it's still a struggle, let's be honest. And it's just not possible. Like, it's not. If I want to even think of having children later, like, it's not good. So it's one of those things that I've created my own because I don't have to be on a stage nowadays to perform. I just put a video on YouTube. And it's like I've created my own little performance way of and representing this idea that ballet should be more accessible and opening it up and trying to inspire other people and hopefully, you know, bringing their love of ballet back. Because the amount of messages I get from people who are in the same boat with the body and the weight and the shaming, and my teacher grabbed my back and said I had back fat. I mean, it's just obscene to me. Hopefully what I'm doing is creating that safe, supportive community for people. That's what I hope to do. Whether we travel and do a master class, whether we travel and do a performance, my goal is to not only incorporate the students in the performance, but have a wide variety of professionals in there too. Different skin tones, different body types, different backgrounds, you know. That's the goal, is to make it a safe, happy place for ballet and not this elitist, you know, stereotype, but quite honestly what it has turned into. I know that every other ballet stereotype actually is kind of true. Like, It's very true.
Yeah. Yeah, so we actually see this same parallel in the nutrition field, believe it or not. Most dietitians are white, smaller bodied, just to bring about more diversity, to raise voices of other dietitians that don't necessarily look like this elitist, quote unquote, ideal, is important. And I think it's just so parallel with what you're doing for dancers. And you know what? Just keep it up, because you're really paving the way, and you're paving the way for other dancers to join you in doing that. Like you said, it's maybe you're not changing the industry on your own, like who would ever be able to do that, but if you're paving the way for other dancers to perhaps use their platforms to speak out, then that's moving the industry in of itself.
Yeah, and I think that's something Chris and I are both passionate about. He's also very forward thinking in terms of in the classroom too, like this hierarchy of the ballet teacher in the front of the room and the students all have to be the slaves. Like, that's not a thing. It can't be a thing anymore. Yes, you can push them to work hard. Yes, you can push them to be their personal best and to try, but they can also leave smiling. It's not a mutually exclusive thing. They can leave smiling yet still work hard, and that's, I've seen him do it. And so both of us are also trying to do that. And students are actually like that class. I'm like, I had fun. It's like, yeah, you're supposed to. Like, yeah, you're supposed to.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely. So my final question for you, Kathryn, is something I ask all the dancers on here. I'm very excited for your answers. How would you define what it means to be the healthy dancer?
I think it's being your own personal best, not only in your whatever your body is, whatever your dancing is, but also your own mental space. Like, if you are, quote, dancing your best and look your best, but you are miserable, that's not being a healthy dancer. Do you know what I mean? It's taking care of yourself. It's taking pride in your body. It's taking pride in what you do, but also enjoying it at the same time. Because I'm telling you, the amount of in shape dancers I see who are so miserable is obscene to me. And I'm like, why are we all doing this? Like, we need to get to a place where mentally we match feeling good as well as physically. Because if you are starving yourself and you are going to the gym 18 hours a day and you're literally breaking yourself for this art form, I don't care what you look like. That is not healthy. Do you know what I mean? It's being your personal best, whatever that looks like, whatever, your personal body is, and just feeling good about yourself no matter what anybody thinks of you, and you enjoying your art.
Yeah, and just to bring in something that you said earlier that was so important, having a multifaceted approach, wearing multiple hats as a dancer. A metaphor that I once recently heard that I think fits really well for this is coming to the stage with a different dance that is not centered around obsessive behaviors around body image, weight, and food, right? Because if we continue on with this ideal of whether it means, how a dancer is eating or what a dancer should look like, we're all miserable in this dance, right? Let's bring a new dance to the stage so we can actually, like you said, bring back the joy of this passion that we once had at some point when we started it.
Yeah, because I remember when I first started dancing, it was because my parents put me in ballet because anytime music would come on, I'd dance around the house and whatever. I didn't care what I looked like. I didn't care, and it's just one of those things that, yeah, you've got to be in class and work, but it's also like you can still have that mentality in trying to further yourself in the art form. You don't have to be miserable about it.
Absolutely. Kathryn, thank you so much. I honestly feel like I could talk to you forever. I'm sure you get a lot, but thank you so much for joining us. This was just wonderful.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. This was great.